On Monday, April 5th, 1909, in the Phoenix Gazette, an incredible story, an article that would blow your mind. In a moment, we're going to be talking with David Hatcher Childress about this and some other stories. He is a well-known author, of course, The Mystery of the Olmecs, Technology of the Gods, Lost Cities of North and Central America. What a story we have in store for you next on Coast to Coast AM. David Hatcher Childress, known as the real-life Indiana Jones to many of his fans. He has traveled the world several times over seeking adventure and the answers to the mysteries of mankind's past. In 1976, David left the United States on what would become a 6-year research and adventure odyssey. During the time, he first studied firsthand the ancient civilizations of Africa, the Middle East, China, sometimes journeying into very dangerous territory along the way. And David, of course, has a wide scope of interest, as you will find out tonight, not only on ancient civilizations and technology, but also free energy, anti-gravity, and UFOs. And he's been just investigating these subjects for well over 20 years. David Hatcher Childress. Hey, David, welcome back. How are you?
Hi, good, George. It's good to be back on your show.
It's been a long time, hasn't it?
You know, it's been a few years, and in that time, well, I've been traveling around the world working on new books.
Getting new data for us.
Yes, indeed. And, this whole thing of the Egyptian city and the Grand Canyon is one of those popular subjects that just, won't go away. And it's an interesting one to discuss. It will actually be a chapter, too, in an upcoming book that I'm working on that should be out next spring, which is a book called Lost Cities and Ancient Mysteries of the Southwest.
Excellent. Because you, in your book, The Lost Cities of North and Central America also, you made reference to the Phoenix Gazette article. Let's talk about that for a moment. It came out in 1909. What was that?
You know, that it was a front page newspaper story in the 1909 Phoenix Gazette. Phoenix was a young city then. And what they reported was really astonishing. I mean, they reported that the Smithsonian Institution was doing excavations in the Grand Canyon. They said that it was being supervised by an archaeologist named Jordan. It all had to do with another explorer named Kincaid, who had been traveling down the Grand Canyon. And what he claimed he discovered was these caverns inside the Grand Canyon. Inside these caverns were, he thought, and then the Egyptian, the Smithsonian, then later confirmed, according to the newspaper report, that there were Egyptian artifacts, there were Hindu, Buddhist artifacts from India. They were saying that, there were mummies in there. They were saying this was going to totally change the history of America and the Southwest. Egyptians and Hindus and Buddhists were coming across the Pacific and the Atlantic, coming to North America. They were involved in the civilizations here, and that apparently they had a special vault in the Grand Canyon where they buried some of the leaders, the people they had left behind with artifacts and things like that, and that the Smithsonian Institution got involved. They were hauling all this stuff out of these caves, including these mummies, swords, shields, statues.
Jeez.
Right, and then this the Jordan, the archaeologist, he was going back to Washington, D.C., back to the Smithsonian, and this is these exciting new discoveries in the Grand Canyon. There was one follow-up story, and then no one really ever heard of it again. And it's really a lot like the first Indiana Jones movie, where Indiana Jones has discovered the lost Ark of the Covenant, and then right at the end of the movie, he says, well, where's the Ark? And they tell him, oh, well, don't worry, top men are working on it. And then the last scene in the movie is this giant warehouse, apparently at the Smithsonian, and the Ark of the Covenant is in this crate, and it's being put in this giant warehouse, and no one's ever going to see it again.
Just put away, yeah.
And that's kind of what appears to have happened with these artifacts in the Grand Canyon. So,
well, first of all, do you think the article was real? It wasn't a joke, wasn't a hoax, right?
well, back in those days, there were a lot of hoax newspaper articles. And, as a researcher, I'm constantly looking for and digging up old newspaper articles and stories about giants, unusual archaeological finds, weird things like that. And when you look at this one, especially because of the detail, it's naming people, later I was able to verify some of it, and I would say yes. I mean, this does seem to be a true story. And the more and more I've looked into it over the years, I first wrote about it in my book, Lost Cities of North and Central America, and that came out in 1994. And in those years, I've had a number of letters. People have called me occasionally, trying to give me, different leads and things like that. And in the end, what I've concluded is that, yes, there really is something to this.
Did anybody ever find this Kincaid fellow, who was the explorer?
This was all turn of the century. The article was in 1909. He was doing this in, say, 1906, that he went down. I mean, it all took like years and stuff for these things to come out. Yeah, no one ever really discovered this Kincaid fellow. And in fact, Jordan, the archaeologist, he seems to have vanished too. Although as we've gone through old records of the Smithsonian, there is a guy who's mentioned named Jordan a few times. It's likely that he disappeared too, and
it's weird.
Well, it's quite a strange thing. And then as I started looking into the Smithsonian and the idea of cover-ups, people naturally ask me when this subject comes up. They're like, "Well, why would they cover something like that up anyway?" And that is a good question. And there are answers for that. Part of the whole thing of the Southwest and what was going on here, even right now, I'm in Arizona talking to you. There's a lot of the history here is just so discombobulated. The idea of mummies that were found in the Grand Canyon. Mainstream archaeologists maintain even today that Native Americans here in New Mexico, Colorado, Arizona, Utah, whatnot, that they didn't mummify the dead. And yet the Grand Canyon article is talking about mummies and things like that in these caverns. So that itself was a clue. Are there mummies out here? And one of the things that I found out that was pretty strange too was that the quintessential roadside attraction out in the desert, it's in southern Arizona near Tombstone, near Benson, and it's called The Thing. And as you're driving through the desert, you start seeing the billboards, 100 miles to The Thing. What is The Thing? Next exit, The Thing. And so eventually you get your parents to pull off and take you to The Thing at this gas station. And I've been to The Thing a couple of times. And
what is
you
The
can
Thing?
still see it, actually.
What is it?
What is it? Yeah, when you go through, you pay $1, and you get to go in and see The Thing. And what The Thing is a mummy of a woman and child together. And they're mummified. And supposedly, this mother and child mummy, that is, they call The Thing, is from the Grand Canyon. And trying to trace it, The Thing, is very tricky. What little information I've gotten is that it was purchased privately, also around 1910 or so. It came out of Flagstaff, Arizona, which is near to the Grand Canyon. And apparently The Thing may well be one of the artifacts, one of the mummies that came out of these caves, rock-cut caves in the Grand Canyon.
There were also apparently tablets of stone with hieroglyphs written all over it that the Smithsonian folks took.
That's right, and we don't know what hieroglyphs that would have been. Egyptian, presumably. They don't describe them. There's no photos. We don't That's one of the things that I've really searched for. Old photos of these